let's rank every single Nintendo Switch game that released in 2025. And now that I've been looking at these games for a little bit, I've played them all. And look at all these games released. Man, there are quite a lot. We got some Switch 2 editions that padded out their release date. And of course, we got the brand new Switch 2 console released this year. But I think there's a hefty amount that released this year that we can kind of discuss. So I'm going to go over each of them individually. We'll talk about them all. And I'm going to just rank them. Now, for most of these games, I've done main channel reviews on them. I've ranked them on what I call the game gauge on the main channel. And I'm going to briefly discuss that, but this is just a condensed quick version of all these games, and I've done quick reviews on all these games on my channel before, but I'm going to do it on the Russ Vandy 2 channel, and I'm going to rank them all just so that we can comprehend my favorites and my least favorites of the year so far, and we will go through as they released. So obviously at the beginning of the year, there weren't many Nintendo Switch games that released. The Switch 2 was kind of being hyped up. We were getting ready for it, but we didn't know about it. But thankfully, the day that Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Switch 1 was released, that was the same day that the Nintendo Switch 2 was announced, which was a very crazy day for it to be announced. And so that's always a memory I'll have about the Donkey Kong Country Returns game. When I actually played it for the first time on the Nintendo Switch, we had just got news and an official announcement that the Switch 2 existed and that we were going to hear about it even more in April. So that's always something nostalgia I'll think about when I think about Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Switch 1. The hype for the Switch 2 was at an all-time high, and I was like, yeah, this is going to be a good game. So Donkey Kong Country Returns. This was also a point in my channel where I was just starting to do full-blown video reviews on these games. I didn't give them a number ranking. I didn't have the game gauge until Donkey Kong Bonanza, but I'll share them with you now. I'll share my ranking here and how I feel about it. So Donkey Kong Country Returns, I actually did play back with my brother when it released in 2010. I think that's when it released on the Wii. And I never really played it single player. My brother bought it, and I was oftentimes just playing it as Diddy Kong, and I never really experienced the game on my own or all the way through. I would just jump in at certain times and see what he was doing. I'd jump in for a level as my little boy Diddy, and yeah, that's just kind of how I played the game originally. Now, we jump further a couple years, they had the 3DS remake, then we jump even further, and by the way, I never got the 3DS remake, but my brother did, because he absolutely loves the Donkey Kong Country franchise. But anyways, the Switch 2 version, or the Switch 1 version, was released, and I bought it instantly, as I said, and I did play through the whole game with my brother, but I did sit through the whole thing, I played through it, and I actually really enjoyed it. Now, I think the very first issue with it, if there was going to be an issue, and this is an issue before it even starts, and we'll find this for a lot of the games that we talk about moving forward, is actually the price. This game was a full $60 at launch, which is just a lot for a Wii game. The Wii game launched back for, I think, $40, and I know inflation and all that stuff happened, but they really didn't add much more content here or anything that's really worth that $60. Like, especially because of how short the game was. It was about 10 hours or so, if even, if you don't include the mirror mode or whatever that was. But like overall, I think the biggest issue with it was that it was a full-blown $60. Like, it's crazy to think that Nintendo is charging the same amount for this game as they did for, like Smash Ultimate or even Mario Kart 8 Deluxe or Animal Crossing. You see what I mean? When you put it up against those other games, it's really hard to justify the price. And that right away was a huge kind of stab in the back almost. You started off with a little bit of a bitter taste in your mouth. And as you play the game, that taste gets a little bit sweeter because you know what? It was a good game. And I think for most people, if you've played it for the first time on the Switch and you didn't play it on the past games, as a standalone game, assuming the past games didn't get released at a really low price or whatever, it's a solid game. It doesn't look the prettiest graphically, but because it is 1080p, it does look fairly on par with some other first-party Nintendo games that we've got. I really liked the gameplay loop. I thought that the challenge was a lot more substantial than some other 2D platformers from Nintendo, like the Super Mario Bros. Series. I love how they added Diddy Kong and how he Z is used in multiplayer. The level design was pretty decent. I don't love the boss fights or really a lot of the boss designs, and I think that's an unpopular opinion, but I really don't like why they didn't just do the Koopalings, or not the Koopalings. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I actually just said the Koopalings. I meant the Kremlings. I think that really is this game's biggest flaw aside from the price. I think the bosses and the overall vibe of it just wasn't as tight as it could be, and I really wish that they did utilize those more pungent Kremlings in this game. I also just gotta say, it's crazy that they made an entire theme park for this game. Super Nintendo World released at Universal, and oh my goodness, the fact that they made the full park based on this game alone doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. It's using the old Donkey Kong design, and we knew about... Actually, it's crazy. The day that this released, we got teased Donkey Kong's new design from Bonanza, from the quick tease from Mario Kart. So it's just crazy that we were playing this old design of Donkey Kong on the Switch 1. Anyways, overall, as the game, I gotta say, it's a solid B tier. I gotta say it's B tier. For a release, for the price, for the decent or not so decent boss design, I think there was a lot that they could have added here, and it just didn't seem that necessary. I guess it was necessary, but just odd that it was a full-blown $60. That really was confusing. Then we have, in March, 2 months later, which was, by the way, very odd. At this point, Nintendo was dwindling away the Switch 1 releases. We didn't know much about any of the games that were releasing. We briefly knew that, obviously, the Switch 2 was going to get announced, and there was a big presentation in April. But after Xenoblade Chronicles X release, we really had no idea what was coming up after the Switch 2. But anyways, how is Xenoblade Chronicles X? So, if you know me at all, you might know that I'm not a huge Xenoblade fan. I'm not a big Xenoblade fan at all. I had never played a Xenoblade game ever, and apparently this was a bad one to start off with, but regardless, I did start off with this one. And you might be asking, why did I even do that? Why did I start off with this one? Well, like I said kind of earlier, this is when I started to play every single Nintendo release, and I started talking about more things Nintendo Switch related, and it was my job. I made YouTube my full-time job, and at this point I was like, okay, I really got to scrape the bottom of the barrel. Switch 1 content was very slim. There wasn't really much to talk about. So when a release from Nintendo came out, even if it wasn't a major release like Xenoblade Chronicles X, I wanted to cover it. I wanted to talk about it. So let's do that now. I did make a full video on this as well, and overall, my experience was pretty positive on Xenoblade Chronicles X. For those who don't know, it is a full remake as well. It's the definitive edition. This is one of the only games that didn't get brought over from the Wii U to the Nintendo Switch with a new port or remake or whatever. This was one that seemed the most feasible to get brought over from the Wii U that hadn't been brought over yet. There are still some games that didn't get brought over from the Wii U, like Paper Mario Color Splash or Nintendo Land, but those two games specifically were very reliant on the Wii U gamepad, and this one was too, to a certain degree. I guess there was something with the map and the way you commanded your team or something, but a lot of people with a very creative imagination did find out that there was a way that they could bring this from this Wii U to the Switch 1. And you know what? I'm glad they did, because I really enjoyed this game, actually. This is like I don't remember what it's called. Is it a real-time strategy game? I think that's what it is. It's like a real-time RPG where you use a move, you wait for it to build up again, and then you can use it again. You can build up your team, you can level up, and then you can also even use these big mechs. There's also a really big and quite decent story, actually. The map is also very impressive, very detailed for a Wii U game. I honestly was super impressed for how massive and vast this big world was. Like, how the heck does Xenoblade Chronicles have a budget to just go absolutely ham on these cutscenes and big maps and gameplay mechanics, and then you see like Pokemon games at the same time, like Sword and Shield, do absolutely horrid, no voice acting, no major or interesting cutscenes or whatever. That was my thinking at the time. It is still kind of my thinking now. Obviously, the development time and budget for a Xenoblade game is a lot higher than a Pokemon game for some reason. But anyways, I thoroughly thoroughly enjoyed it. I really thought it was fun. I think I played it for about 20 hours, and I don't think I ever beat it. I don't know. I don't think I fully played through the whole thing, but I did play through a very large chunk of it, and I enjoyed it for what it was. But again, you got to kind of remember the time that it was. This was March of 2025, of earlier this year, and we heard about the Switch 2, and it's like at this point, I was just kind of done with the Switch 1. Like, I was making Switch 1 content, but I was talking a lot less about the games in general, and I just really didn't want to play it as much because it was a Switch 1. I think if they had announced that there was like a Switch 2 edition for this game, which I think it actually desperately needed because this whole game is in 30 frames per second, and I think that they could have easily pushed it to 60 frames per second, and even at the time when it was released, I guess there was some sort of a patch on the inside of the game that said there was apparently a toggle that you could make it 60 frames per second, but anyways, whatever. This game in general, I know I've talked about it a lot. I'm gonna safely put it behind Donkey Kong Country in B. It's again, decent game, very interesting, and I did not have an issue with the $60 either. I thought this was a full package, and there's no reason for me to think that it wasn't worth $60. Maybe it's because I never bought it before. So now, this was a very dull time in 2025. We didn't get any releases from what I can remember, unless my tier list here is wrong, but we didn't get any releases from Xenoblade all the way up until the launch of the Switch 2. The Switch 2 launched in June, and this brought a bunch of new games from Nintendo, specifically the new Nintendo Switch 2 editions for the Zelda games, Welcome Tour and Mario Kart World. So let's go through them one by one. And also, I'm going to be looking at these Nintendo Switch 2 editions as if you had already bought the game. I'm not going to be talking about if I bought the full game or whatever. I'm not going to pretend like I paid for the full game twice. I might have, but I'm not going to talk about it like that. I'm going to just, I'm going to imagine I spent, $10 on these two upgrades. And okay, let's start with Zelda. Anyways, the two Nintendo Switch 2 editions for this game, I'm going to kind of bundle them here together because there's not really much extra content, but they were very, 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 very good. They were extremely necessary for these two games, especially Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild ran pretty good on the Switch 1. There weren't any major frame rates, and I think it would have been fine if they never ended up doing this. And we also heard about Breath of the Wild specifically many, many months in advance before the Switch 2 was even announced that this was teased, a new 4K 60 frames per second version of these games for the new console. And obviously this ended up being true. These two Nintendo Switch 2 editions are by far the best Switch 2 editions for the price, I think, out of almost any of these, except for one. But I think that these two, for the price at only $10 to upgrade it, was a very good price for the big graphical update. And then you also got the GPS system called Zelda Notes, which you could link to your phone and see a live feed of yourself, as well as learning about where some Korok seeds were or certain missions or whatever. It pretty much just helped you 100% the game a lot easier than it was to do before. But again, the main thing for me was the insane graphical and performance updates. Running at 4K 60 frames per second, these two games are actually now fantastic on the Switch 2, and I would almost recommend, if you had never played these two Zelda games, this is a must buy. I think truly these are very good, especially with Tears of the Kingdom, where Tears of the Kingdom on the Switch 1 had a lot of performance issues. Having it now on the Switch 2 with no performance issues at all, at a crisp resolution, I mean, these are just really good. I have to put these two games in S tier. I think that for what they're doing for the Switch 2 edition, these are both Switch 2 or S tier games. Like, very good. I highly, highly recommend you get this if you have a Switch 2 and you already have the games. And if you've never experienced the games and you want to buy them for the first time, once again, I would say there's absolutely no regrets buying them. Start with Breath of the Wild and then go to Tears of the Kingdom though. Anyways, moving on from those ones, we're gonna go to Welcome Tour. This was the non-pack-in game. This was the paid-for game. This was a $10 showcase of all of the Nintendo Switch 2 features. It was essentially a tech demo, and I think this is the issue with a lot of with it. It's the fact that this wasn't free. You paid for it. I really think that not only made it very annoying for people to want to buy and play and try out, there just didn't seem to be as big of a game here as, you know, an actual game. I don't even know if that made sense, but that's just my quick first impression of it. It's odd that this tech demo was for money, and I think a lot of the hardcore people who bought it on day one were just salty that this wasn't free. I mean, you look at PlayStation 5, they had a fantastic tech demo for the PS5 called Astro's Playroom. It's a full-blown 3D platformer, and it is amazing. It is such a good game alone that even if I spent $10 on that, I'd be happy. But the fact that PlayStation just included it preloaded on the PS5 in general, that really shows that they wanted you to see all the features for the console itself. And I think the worst thing about this was that they did charge money for it. Now, all that being said, let's just take away the mental side, the industry side of the fact that they charge us $10. Let's just say that wasn't an option. How is it for a game itself? I actually really liked it. Okay, I did pay the $10 for it, and I genuinely thought it was a very fun game. It was just really fun. I don't know what to say. I tried to go for 100%. I very quickly gave up on that goal because there were some challenges in here that were very difficult to do. This is just a wide variety of a ton of mini games, or just some unique, fun little features or thoughts that they had about the Switch 2. It literally just teaches you about the Switch 2, which again makes it feel like a tech demo, and it is. You're literally going inside of the Nintendo Switch itself. You're going to the Joy-Cons, the console, you're going to the dock, you're getting shown even the camera accessory and the grip and the straps. Everything about the Switch 2 hardware itself, you are learning about. You're learning about why the engineers thought about doing a certain thing. And it's taught me a lot about some really fun Easter eggs, you could say, or features they added on the Switch 2 itself. Did you know that if you pull on the cord, the power cord of the Switch 2 dock, it won't tip over because they added a little piece of plastic on it? Okay, that's cool. Did you also know that the speakers are technically the same speakers as the Nintendo Switch OLED speakers, but because of the placement on them, they actually sound louder and more depth because of the way that they are pointing it at the player? What the heck? It's just all so interesting to me. And again, the challenges were really fun, and I thought that when I was showing this game to people, this was actually a big selling point to it. So, for example, I showed my mom some of the cutscenes, or not the cutscenes, some of the mini games. There's this one where you're scraping paint off, and you had to do it and scrape all the paint off with the mouse mode within, let's say, I think it was 15 seconds. And I kept doing it over and over again, and I couldn't get it. And my mom's like, I can do it. I got you, kid. And she tried it, and we played the game for 30 minutes. Just that one mini game. And you can unlock stuff, and you can go through it, and you get medals, and you can learn about the system. I think the worst part about this game is that you need to do quizzes. You need to sit through these quizzes that explain to you about the system itself, and then you need to do a quiz, and then once you do the quiz, you can move on to the next mini game. I think that was a little bit lame. I don't think they should force you to want to learn about the console itself. They shouldn't have, you shouldn't, I don't want it to feel like a quiz. I don't want it to feel like I'm needing to learn. With the PlayStation 5 tech demo, the Astrobot demo, they showed you how the system worked without explaining it to you. They just wanted to show you what it could do, not necessarily how it was doing it. And I think that's what this game tried to do with the mini games, but because you had to do the quizzes, it made it very kind of boring at times. I don't know, I think 40% of it was the quizzes, and I think that made it really bogged down. They should just make a list of mini games that you can play with certain times that you can beat, and you get these awards and medals if you do it within a certain amount of time for that. I think that would have really made the game stand out a lot more. I think it would have made a little bit more sense for you to actually be paying for it, because if I'm paying for it, I shouldn't need to learn. I should just want to learn if I want to learn. But all that being said, it should not have been paid for. And I think this has a really bad connotation to it. I don't even know if that's the right word I'm using, but I think this has a really bad rap because of how bad people thought about it because it's paid. But as a game itself, even as a $10 game for me, because, as a game that's $10, I think it was pretty fun. And I had an enjoying time for it. I gotta put it in, I gotta put it in a B. And I think I gotta put it in B. Yeah, that's decent. I'm okay with that. Next up is Mario Kart World. Now, if you've seen my main channel at all, you kind of know my opinion on this already. You probably know how I feel about it. And so I'll make this quick. I think that this game is very decent. I think it's a very good good game gameplay wise. I love the character selection in it. I love the graphics and the environments and the fact that they even pulled from the open world. But this is the definition of a half-baked game for me. I feel like they finished everything they needed to and didn't go above and beyond in the way that I felt like they should have for a brand new Mario Kart World game, especially when you look at the context of they are charging a brand new $80 for this game. This is the most expensive any game in the industry has ever been, and they are claiming that this is worth $80 over any other game. And I think the reason that they are selling it for $80 and the way that Doug Bowser, the former president of Nintendo, kind of explained it was, he said, because we're going to be supporting this game for long term and people are going to be playing it for years and years to come, we're going to charge $80 for it so that we can get our money's worth. To me, that means free content updates and support as the game goes on over the many, many years of them supporting this game. But at this point, over 6 months later, it's kind of annoying because we have heard nothing about how they're going to support this game long term. They are adding features that should have been in the game already. For example, there's this P-Switch tracker, and they didn't add the P-Switch tracker to the game until like 2 months after it was released. And then they finally just this month added some features that, again, should have already been in the game. Like you can switch what items you want in a race of your own, in your own versus race. They've been messing with the online feature so that you don't get the long intermission tracks. I think a lot of you probably already know the problems with this game, but that's just the biggest issues for me. I think that they did just enough when they released the game and all that. But if I look at it as a game in and of itself, I think the game is a really good game. Like the driving mechanics, the wall driving, and all that other stuff. It's a good Mario Kart game. Very annoying with how they are treating it with the price and their support for it. Now, there is also a side to this that I think a lot of people forget and don't fully comprehend when it comes to this Mario Kart World game in and of itself. And I think it's a lens that I need to look through it as a little bit more, even though it's the wrong lens, I think. But anyways, it's the fact that most people, like, let's be real, most people that bought this game bought the bundle, which technically made this game only $50 because the bundle from the base Nintendo Switch 2 was only $50 more. So that being said, I really, really do think that it's because most people spent $50 on it that they can justify it, and that I can justify some of these issues with it and maybe the lack of content. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think it's actually kind of a greedy or a scummy thing for them to do, and I really am annoyed with how they're dealing with this and why they're doing it this certain way, and I think that they could have added a lot more content. I think there was a lot more potential for the open world mode. They didn't do bosses or missions. They did basic P-Switch missions and these gold Peach medallions, and they did these question mark stops or these question mark blocks or whatever, and the only thing you get from doing any of these things in the open world mode are some stickers, and the stickers goes on your license, and this license for the online mode is just the one sticker, and there's so many stickers. And yeah, it's cool that they're stickers, but they're just stickers. You're not unlocking anything else through this. But I really do think that their main push with this game was the online, I guess just the overall gameplay mechanics, and it's a good gameplay mechanic. I'm just excited and ready for them to add a little bit more, or at least like tell us how they're going to be adding more, especially if they have the audacity to charge $80 for it. And I know I said that they technically deem this as a $50 game, and that's how we should be looking at it, but by them putting it out for $80 separately, they are claiming that this is worth $80, which it just isn't. For me, I gotta put this right above Donkey Kong in B tier. It's probably, I might move it up to A. We'll see how it goes. I gotta put it in A. I'm gonna do it in A. My first impression, and after talking about it and getting heated over it, is to put it in B, but yeah. Anyways. Okay, now Donkey Kong Bonanza. I'm going through this a lot slower than I thought. I'm getting a lot more chatty than I realized. Donkey Kong Bonanza. Let's just make it short and sweet because I just have so many good things to say about this game. Gameplay-wise, it's fantastic. Movement-wise, it is absolutely goated. Visually, it is the best game that looks good on the Switch 2. Like, it looks really good. The story is fantastic, especially between Donkey Kong and Pauline. You can also unlock costumes by collecting the collectibles. The collectibles actually do something, not just give you basic stickers. You can actually tell where these collectibles are with certain collectathon trackers that they've added, which make it even better. Like, they finished this game before they released it, and I just love it. It's also only $70, which is $10 less than Mario Kart World, which, is good. This is the industry standard. I'm fine with the $70. I absolutely am fine with that. And I think it's well worth that. Like I said, the gameplay mechanics are amazing. The story is fantastic. The music is awesome. The ending, so good. And everything about this game game is perfect. My only flaw with it, okay, I know I just said it's perfect, but my only flaw with it is that the performance can get a little sketchy sometimes. It can dip a little bit, but overall, I mean, like, it's just such a good game. I did a full review on this as well, and you should check that out if you want my full-blown thoughts on it. But I enjoyed it so much. The character progression, the actual gameplay progression, it really just is perfect all the way through, and for that, I have to put it in the highest slot so far in S tier. This is the best release of the year so far, and we're just gonna keep going after that. I'm talking too long about these games, and again, at this point, after Donkey Kong Bonanza, I've done reviews on pretty much all of these games. So again, you can go check that out after this on the main channel. But let's go through this. Super Mario Party Jamboree, I meant. Plus Jamboree TV. This might actually be C tier or D tier. I gotta say it's C tier. Okay, the game itself is no. We're gonna look at just the Switch 2 edition. Okay, for $20. For just $20. Yeah, I know, I spoiled it. We're doing D tier. This one just confuses me. So they added a handful of Switch 2 specific mini games and stuff like that, but they didn't add that many. So that alone is like, okay, that's fine. But this is $20. They charge us $20 for that. And normally you can justify the price of these Switch 2 editions by what they offer. So for me, I think you can charge $10 for a visual upgrade and $10 for content. I'm justifying the Zelda ones because it's just visual for the most part, but there was even a little bit of content there. And spoiler alert a little bit later, Kirby was also $20 extra, but it does have a visual upgrade and a content upgrade. Here though, in Mario Party Jamboree to TV on the Switch 2, it's $20, but there is actually no noticeable performance or visual upgrade. The Jamboree TV alone is a bit higher resolution, but the frame rate is still 60 frames per second like the base game, and the base game is actually completely different and is running the original Switch 1 version of the game. So you can only play the Switch 1 version at 1080p even though it's the Switch 2 edition of the game. They haven't visually upscaled it at all. And even what they did add, you need to go through a separate menu, and the games aren't that good. And the worst part of it at all is that the online mode, at least when I played, was pretty bad. I thought, like, it wasn't even playable, especially the mouse mode mini games. It was hard to play. There was a lot of latency, and just my experience with this overall wasn't that good. I don't want to harp on it too much. I just really didn't enjoy it. I think the base game is fantastic and honestly the best Mario Party game ever. But the Switch 2 edition alone, which is what we're looking at, is probably the weakest Switch 2 edition we've ever seen and will ever see, I hope, especially for the price. Then we have Drag X Drive. This is the wheelchair basketball game. So this one is just a weird game. It's just odd. Nintendo actually never calls this wheelchair basketball. They just kind of are like, yeah, this is just a person on a machine that has happened to have two wheels that they push around. But anyways, I really liked the game. I only played it for the first week or two, and it was fun to play with other people. And I think it was a very solid release, especially for only $20. I think I got way overhated, but I loved the gameplay of it, and I thought it was a very good use of the two mouse Joy-Cons. I thought it was a very good use of how you can utilize this mouse mode in a game. And if anyone was going to do this, it was going to be Nintendo, and there really is no game like it because you generally don't have two mouses. Yes, that's the proper word. It's not mice. Mouses on a computer ever. So there really is no game like this, and I thought it was good. I thought there was enough content for $20. I thought the online mode was good enough. I didn't love how they didn't allow you to do matchmaking properly. Like, for example, joining a game with someone else I wanted to play with was more difficult than it should have been. You have to like select the public match and then have the other person hopefully join in on you when there's not as many people loaded into the game. Anyways, I thought it was a good game. I thought it was decent. $20. I'm a happy guy with it. It was just a little fun game. And it released on my birthday, so that was a fun little birthday gift that I got from Nintendo. But I gotta say, it's C tier. Nintendo didn't send it to me. They just happened to release it on the same day. Anyways, I streamed it. It was a lot of fun. Okay, next up, and probably my favorite Switch 2 edition so far is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So Kirby and the Forgotten Land on the Switch 1 was in my top 3 games on the Switch in general. I love Kirby. I love that they added him into a 3D platformer, and I thought the whole gameplay loop was just a ton of Kirby goodness. It was like a classic Kirby game, but in 3D. And they allowed you to upgrade the copy abilities. There was a lot of these side missions that you could do. And now with this Switch 2 edition, which is what we're mainly talking about, they added even more content with these crystallized versions of the levels. They're essentially brand new levels. And I gotta just say, there's 8. I think there's 8 different levels, and they're all very unique in their own way, and it just feels like more Kirby. And if you want to, you can play this game now in 4K 60 frames per second. The game originally was in 30 frames per second, which was absolutely noticeable, and it just feels so much better in 60 frames per second. Like, honestly, it is a game changer, I would say. But yeah, I think this is the best Switch 2 edition yet. Extra content, visually very good, and I really don't have much to say. They added a lot of content, looks good. I'm going to put this in S tier. I think it's even better than the Zelda Switch 2 editions as well. So there's that. Then you got Donkey Kong Bonanza, the new DLC. I'm technically counting this. I only played this for about an hour. My brother bought it and he said, hey, try it out. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try it out. For some reason, I didn't have a big push for this game like myself. I don't know why I didn't really want to play this that much. Donkey Kong, again, Bonanza was a fantastic game and I loved it. But I, for some reason, wasn't as interested in this DLC. I think it's very unique. You have to get emeralds as fast as you can. You can upgrade yourself as the game goes on. I like the gameplay loop. It's not my absolute favorite, but it was fun. It was fun. It was a little expensive for DLC, but for what it is, it's B tier. I really don't have too much else to say about it. Then we have Mario Galaxy and Mario Galaxy 2. This one was a Switch 1 release. Whoa, a Switch 1 exclusive. Oh my goodness. I know, it's crazy news. I think needless to say, these both are fantastic games, Mario Galaxy 1 and Mario Galaxy 2. They are some of the best 3D platformers that have ever released, and for that, I think I would put it in S tier. However, I think it is very odd, the price of these games. These are the most expensive these games have ever been, and in general for Mario Galaxy 1, they already released this game back in 2020 for Mario's 35th anniversary. But anyways, looking at these games individually for what they are and how they released, I mean, they're just Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, and these are top tier 3D platformers. And for me personally, I actually never played Mario Galaxy when they first released it on the Switch 1 in 2020. So this was the first time I played both of these games on the Switch 1 in general. Now I will say, I played these games a ton back on the Wii when I was a child, and for some reason, the nostalgia hit so hard for these games and made me feel a way I don't think I've ever felt during a game that I've replayed. Like, this was such a vivid, nostalgic experience that I loved it the entire way through. Like, I really, really enjoyed this. It was almost emotional, especially the first one. It just hit so hard. What I like most about this game is that not only did they just re-release it in HD, but they also changed some textures overall. They actually went into the game files and they upscaled a lot of the textures. They made the games run perfectly on the Nintendo Switch, and they cleaned it up to make it modern. Like, they actually cleaned it up quite a bit. Not only that, but they upscaled it to 4K 60 frames per second on the Switch 2 version for free. You didn't even need to pay for a visual upscale like the other games. They just gave you it for free. It was just an update you could play on the Switch 2, and you could play these games at 4K 60 frames per second, which was, yeah, that was phenomenal. Seeing these games this high resolution, it really does hold up still to this day. I think the movement overall is a little tiny bit dated, especially now that we have Odyssey, but I mean, overall, they're still great games. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should say about these. I don't think so. I'm going to put it in A tier above Mario Kart, because they're just, yeah, two phenomenal games. Oh, the price. The price is a little bit high. I think I already mentioned that, but yeah, the price is kind of crazy. All right, moving on now to Hyrule Warriors. Yay! This was the first Hyrule Warriors game that I actually played and really, really liked. Again, this is my job now, so I felt like I really did need to try and push through this, because past Hyrule Warriors games I started, and I really didn't like all that much. I thought they were kind of repetitive. I thought they were really slow, and I didn't ever really like the story that much, especially in the Age of Calamity game when that technically wasn't canon. I just didn't like it that much. This game is canon, and even if I didn't need to push myself to play it, which I know is what I said, I think I would have played it anyways and really enjoyed it. This game feels like a full-blown experience, and this was one of the first Nintendo games aside from maybe Bonanza. Oh yeah, this is really the third full release from Nintendo since Bonanza, and yeah, it felt like a full game experience, and it was a lot of fun. I really got into the gameplay mechanics, the fighting, the gameplay loop overall, the extra side missions and side quests quests and stuff like that. And yeah, I think it was just solid. I don't know what else to say. I think I'm dwindling away here. I've been talking for too long straight. I've almost been talking for 45-50 minutes, but overall, this was just a fun experience. It ran decently. I think the frame rate was a little bit low, but the fact that they got it up to 60 frames per second and all was a game changer, really, for this style of games. And this is the first game. Oh, wait. I think the first Hyrule Warriors game did run at 60 frames per second as well, but it was pretty choppy unless you put it on the Switch too. Yeah, I really don't know what else to say about this. It was $70. It's good enough. I kept forgetting about it before it released. It's just one of those really forgettable games in my opinion. I don't know why, but it just was. I just kept forgetting it. But I gotta say, it's a solid A tier. Maybe I'll say no. It's B, high B tier. Very good game. I liked it for what it was. Then we have Pokemon Legends ZA. Yes, Pokemon Legends ZA. Now Nintendo did provide me this game, but that, as you'll soon find out, has not affected my opinion on it whatsoever. It was actually the very first game that they sent me, and I'm like, oh, let's go. I made it. So that was cool. I did end up buying it anyways so that I could play with my brother, and I wanted the physical version. But anyways, how do I think about it? How do I feel? Once again, if you've seen my channel and my reviews for these games, you'll know. And I think this was probably one of my biggest disappointments for a game in a long time. Like, yes, I was disappointed about Mario Kart World to some degree, but at least it was a good game and I could look past a lot of the issues. This one, I was just like, oh man, dang it. A lot of it has to do with the fact that it is still a Switch 1 game. This was clearly just an upscaled Switch 1 game. The textures are absolutely awful throughout the game. The graphics are despicable. The cutscenes aren't voice acted, which isn't that big of a deal, but they totally could have been. The story is just okay. Like, for me, it's good. I feel like there was a lot of filler though in the story. There was just constant yapping and talking that I was spamming through some of the text because I really didn't care, and it just felt like such filler. But even on top of that, I think the overall gameplay mechanics from this game compared to previous Pokemon games, more specifically Pokemon Arceus, was downgraded. I really loved Pokemon Legends Arceus. That was my favorite Pokemon game ever. I loved how they brought it into a really big open world area, and how they really allowed you to interact with these Pokemon in the wild. You could even throw berries to lure some Pokemon in a certain way. You can meet up with these big alpha Pokemon, and I don't know, it's just like, it's perfect. You even had crafting Pokeballs. You had customizing characters. And this isn't to say that this is like a bad game or whatever. Like, some of it is good. I really enjoyed the battling mechanic and how they upgraded and changed that. I really do like the battling a lot more. Not to the point where, it's a huge difference and I can't go back to any other games. But I mean, a big issue with me for a lot of past Pokemon games is the battling was just really slow. They really did speed it up here. It feels a lot like, honestly, Xenoblade games. And I liked that. I also like the fundamentals of Pokemon itself, how you catch and level up and evolve your Pokemon and everything surrounding that. So I do really like the core concept and the ideas of Pokemon. I just really was disappointed with the quality of this game and the step backs that they took, especially from Arceus. So I mean, for me, and I know a lot of people love this game, and I'm not flaming anyone else for it, but for me, I mean, I gotta put it in C tier. I really wasn't in love with it. If you love it, you love it. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and I'm okay with that. So respect mine. But that's what I would say for this one. On a more positive note, Kirby Air Riders is next, and I absolutely adored this game. Holy smokes. I had never been this addicted to a game in a long time. Like, I could not get enough of it during the first launch week. And again, it just feels like a core game. It's the racing Smash Bros, I think, which makes a lot of sense because, Sakurai made this game. He also made Smash Bros. And what I've come to realize about this game is that it's not one that you play over time like Smash Bros. This is just a really solid kart racer single player experience. I really think that's how you should be looking at this game nowadays, because it is just a completely different vibe than a Smash Bros or the typical party game, mainly because it's so hard to get used to and to comprehend a lot of the mechanics. It has this one button layout where you just click the one button to drift, you click the one button to use a copy ability, you use one button to suck up a copy ability. There's one different special ability. And I don't know, I think the core controls of it all really is just lacking. I think that they kind of fumbled with how accessible they made this game. And I think they could have made it definitely a lot more easier to understand with more buttons. And it's funny because I think they thought if you only put it to one button, it'll be easier to use and it'll be easier to understand. But it's the complete opposite in my opinion. It's more difficult to understand because of the one button layout. But anyways, moving on from that, yes, this does feel like a single player experience over a party experience like a racing game would typically be. You have unlockables that unlock as you complete this challenge board, which is really fun to engage with. You have this whole story mode, which is just, first of all, fantastic. The cutscenes are also phenomenal. There's voice acting. What the heck? Voice acting? I know, but they have voice acting. They have a really interesting challenge board, a really engaging single player that only lasts about like an hour and a half, but I could replay over and over again. I absolutely glazed it in my review for this game, but this is the most overboard game that has ever released. They did way more than they needed to, way more than my expectation was for this. They added so many things that just wasn't necessary that I have to just be like, wow, what the heck are they thinking? They added a full customization to your license. They added so many stickers, which already comparing it to Mario Kart was a huge upgrade. They added a ton of characters. They added, copy abilities for each character individually. They added special abilities for each character. They added vehicle customization, accessories for your vehicles, extra modes like Amiibo. They added Amiibo, and then they changed how Amiibo are in general with this whole swap force thing. There's just so much to this game that I love it. And for me personally, I like Kirby. Kirby's probably my favorite gaming franchise ever. And for that, I have to, it is personally it is my game of the year. I liked it a little bit more than Donkey Kong Bonanza. And I know that's probably an unpopular opinion, but this is my ranking. And it is my favorite game on the Switch 2 from Nintendo so far. So yeah, check out my full review if you want the context for all of this, but I really did enjoy this game. And last but not least, the final game on the Switch 2 that Nintendo did was Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, the game that was being developed for 8 years, and halfway through they decided to scrap it all and start again. And I think because of all this, because it took so long to develop, I think my expectation was just a little bit higher than maybe it should have been. Now, you should understand that I'm not a huge Metroid Prime fan in the first place. I love the 2D Metroid games, but I never loved the 3D Metroid games, Metroid Prime games. That's not to say they're bad. I liked them for what they were doing and what they were. I just found them to be a little bit boring. I didn't love for this one specifically, I didn't love the combat really. The puzzles were just kind of okay. I think that the bosses are all very unique in terms of design, but they take so long to kill. like oh my goodness, they just take so long to kill. And the fundamentals of the game, I don't love the fundamentals, like the whole saving thing. If you didn't, and this really screwed me over the first time. When you play the game, you go through it, and every time you see a saving platform, you should go and save, because if you die and you're not saved, you have to go back to your last save. And there was a section where I had played for like an hour. This happens every time I play a Metroid game, but there was like an hour long, or half an hour to an hour long of me playing it, and I didn't get a save point, and then I died, and then I had to restart all of it again. And it obviously took me a little bit longer, or it took me a little bit shorter to get through the second time I played it through, but I was like, oh, what a waste. Oh, but yeah, I don't know. I just didn't love the combat. I think the story was just fine. There was a lot of drama over the side characters in this game. A lot of people didn't like how much they spoke or how quirky they are when they spoke. And I actually get it. I actually get why they say that. But I don't think it's the side characters. It's because this whole game has these side characters all talking to Samus, and Samus doesn't say a word. Samus is just silent the entire time. There's no voice acting at all, at least in this way, aside from some grunting and stuff. Why is there no voice acting for Samus? We have these very vibrant personalities from these side characters, and then you have Samus, who's just not saying anything, which was a huge issue, which I think, honestly, I don't know, I think that's what makes these side characters so hard to listen to, or so annoying for a lot of people. And then you have the whole Samus on a bike thing. I think the desert looks a little bit barren, but again, this is also Switch 1 game, so I will give it that. Okay, it does look a little bit barren. I also just found that this biking section was just a little bit unnecessary to a certain degree. Like, there's a bunch of areas that you're driving to with the bike, but I mean, it's just like, what's the point? I'm just driving over to the bike, and the bike has some missiles and stuff. And I think the intro was also it was just pretty long and a little bit boring. I don't know. I just think that this game specifically wasn't for me. I don't think Metroid Prime games were ever for me. I totally understand the appeal. And again, I really, really like 2D Metroid games. Metroid Dread is a fantastic experience. But for me specifically, I just don't love the Metroid Prime series, I guess. And I am slowly getting through it. I just, I don't know. They're just not for me. Once again, respect the opinion. But I did like it more than Pokemon. So it is in B. So here's my official tier list. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you disagree with, what you agree with as well. And yeah, you know what? Nintendo did a good job this year. They really gave us quite the hefty amount of releases overall. And this is the most amount of releases any publisher will release ever in a year. And I'm honestly just thankful that Nintendo actually gives us Nintendo fans a ton of releases. I think next year is going to be a really, really big year for their first party games. So yeah, check out some of my other videos. I'm going to do a whole video discussing what's coming up next year and my thoughts and opinions on them. So thank you all for watching. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Give me your S tier and your D tier list in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a good rest of your day. See you later.